Beyond Being Good series of videos. In a recent episode I explained to you the Tuckman stages of team development model. If you want to give your team every chance of getting to the performing stage of that model, here's another model, something that I've created myself, so this is my own intellectual property, about how to go about ensuring that you get to that performing stage in Tuckman's model. Now, any of you that know me will know that I'm not a mathematician. That said, I did achieve a high distinction with a score of 93 for statistics at the doctoral level at Monash University in the Doctor of Business Administration program. Now, one of the things that mathematics has brought to us, and something that I love and I really cherish, is the idea and concept of a model. See, mathematics has brought us formulas, and models are effectively a reflection of a formula. So here's a 7-step formula for helping you reach that performing stage in Tuckman's 5 stages of team development. The first step is to decide to be a high-performing team. How to do that is to literally sit down with your team and have the conversation about, if we were a high-performing team, we would what? Have that conversation with your team, get absolute clarity about what a high-performing team specific to your team would look like for you and your circumstances. Next, clarify your purpose and your goals. In terms of purpose, it's as simple as answering the question, why does this team exist? Now, normally the team exists to serve the organisation's purpose in the context of whatever the team is, whether it's an executive team, an operations team, a factory team, or whatever the case may be. But the team needs to be clear about why it exists. Now, if the team doesn't have a clear purpose, then it probably shouldn't exist. Once you've got clarity about your purpose, your goals should align to achieving that purpose. So your goals must align with the purpose. They've got to fit hand in glove. And you need to be clear about that. Most teams, in fact, are already doing somewhere between 3 to 4 of these key elements of my Teams That Matter model for creating high-performing teams. It's the issue for them is it's the 3 to 4 key elements that they're not doing that makes the big difference. And often, people have goals, but they haven't clarified their purpose. The third key element for creating a high-performing team is understanding your team member skills and profiles. Now, most teams are pretty good at understanding the experience and skills of their various team members. It's the profiles, the personality profiles that people don't understand. And while you might go away and do the Myers-Briggs or do the DISC or whatever tool that you do, the way that you use those tools quite often means it's fun for the day, but it's not useful and people don't really understand how to use that information. The reason why you need to understand the various personality preferences, both from an individual and team point of view, is to enhance your communication. Because communication is the #1 problem that exists in organisations because it's so complex. To help reduce that complexity, you need to understand who the people are in your team and why they behave the way they do. They need to understand that, and the other people in the team need to understand that, so you can leverage people's preferences. And I prefer to use the What Makes People Tick tool for helping people to do that, because it's easy to use and it's memorable and people can use it going forward. But we'll learn more about that in another episode. The fourth key element is create agreed behaviours. Think about this question. Do high-performing teams accept unacceptable behaviour? The answer is no, they don't. Now, to not accept unacceptable behaviour, you have to know what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. And the only people who can determine that are the people in your team. In another episode, I'll teach you how to go through that process to get clarity about what your agreed behaviours are. The fifth key element is to establish plans and measurements. Again, this is one of the areas where most teams are really good. They have their plans that hopefully relate to the goals that they've got. The measurements, on the other hand, are where you need to be very careful. One of my heroes is Russell Ackoff, or Professor Russell Ackoff, who was the Professor Emeritus at the Wharton Business School. One of the things that I love quoting him saying was, "It's better to do the right thing wrong than the wrong thing right. If you do the wrong thing right, you just get wronger and wronger." Now, I share that quote with measurements because often people measure the wrong thing. And I'll spend another episode explaining, in a service excellence context, one way where people get complaints measurements completely wrong. So it's really, really important that you are clear. Are we measuring the right things? Is the measurements enabling us to be clear if we're achieving our goals, and therefore know that we're aligned to the purpose of this team? The sixth key element for creating a high-performing team is perform. What that means is that you do all of these key elements. Remember, when your team changes, if only by one person, you immediately go back to the forming stage in Tuckman's model. Well, what that means is you need to quickly do all of these 7 steps again, including this one. Now, as you get good at this, that process gets faster and faster, but it's something that you need to practice and master over time to help you move beyond being good with your leadership. The last one is monitor and review. Now again, a lot of people are really good at monitoring and reviewing their plans as they relate to their goals, but what they don't do, because they don't have them in the first place, is monitor and review their behaviours. And again, in another episode, I'll be teaching you how to monitor and review behaviours of your team members. Use the Teams That Matter model to help you move beyond being good with your leadership, and I look forward to seeing you next time.